Problem: streamers tied hook point down. The majority of streamers that I see on the market today are tied with the hook point down. The problem with that is because you're trying to hook the fish in the worst place possible. If you look at a trout's mouth, the bottom jaw is almost entirely bone. If you look at the top of a trout's mouth, it's a lot softer and there's a lot more real estate for the hook to hook into. The other issue fishing streamers that are tied hook point down is that you're going to hook up on a lot more debris like logs and rocks, which are going to dull your hooks. The solution? Tie or buy your flies with a hook point up. You can do this by adding lead eyes and lead to the bottom to flip the hook point up, or you can tie them on jig hooks. Then when you set the hook, you're going to be driving the hook up into the roof of the trout's mouth. You're going to get a better hook set, and when you're fighting the fish, applying pressure, you're always keeping that hook driving up into the top of the fish's mouth. The problem: oversized floating lines. Floating lines sit on the surface of the water where there's typically the most amount of current. These oversized lines get caught in the current and create a big C shape in your line. That extra slack makes it hard to feel and eat and set the hook when you do get a bite. Floating lines also make it harder to change the depth at which you're fishing, so you're limited to either the surface or the top portion of the water column. In order to combat that, people often will fish long leaders. However, the problem with long leaders is you're introducing even more slack into the equation, because now the fly line isn't only going to have that big C shape, you're also going to have a C shape underneath the water where your fly is down here. You've got a big bow in your leader up to the fly line. The solution? Fish ultra thin diameter sinking lines. That'll get you underneath that fast surface current, and you'll have a more direct connection from your fly up to your rod. That's going to increase the amount of feel that you have to detect eats, and it's going to allow you to set the hook better because you don't have so much slack in your line. The problem: oversized hooks. I've measured how much pressure it takes to set the hook and penetrate all the way to the bend. Those oversized hooks take 3 to 4 times on average the amount of pressure that it takes to set a smaller hook all the way to the bend. On some of these oversized hooks, I've seen as much as 10x the amount of pressure that it takes to penetrate all the way to the bend of the hook. Another issue with oversized hooks: it's a lot harder to fit a giant hook into a fish's mouth. Notice that it's not the streamer itself, it's the hook. The solution: use smaller hooks. That could be a smaller stinger hook in the tail of the fly. That could be some kind of crafty design where you tie flies on a jig hook or something like that. But if you use a smaller hook that's accessible, not buried under material, you're going to get easier hookups. The problem: long leaders. The issue with long leaders is 1, monofilament and fluorocarbon stretch. I've measured lines and they stretch 1 to 3 inches on average per linear foot. The other issue, and we touched upon this earlier, is if you're using a floating line, a long leader, and a heavy fly, you're going to get a big curve in the leader from the fly line down to the fly. That's going to introduce slack, making it harder for you to detect eats and set the hook. The solution: fish a shorter leader made of less stretchy material, preferably on a sinking line, so that you have a more direct connection straight from your rod tip down to your fly. You're not going to get big curves in there that introduce slack, making it hard to detect and eat and set the hook. The problem: dull hooks. This happens oftentimes when streamers are tied hook point down, but it can also happen with jig streamers. The solution: carry a hook hone with you and sharpen your hooks. Make sure they're extra sharp. If you can't get a hook sharp, throw it out. I know it's hard to throw out a $10 streamer. However, it's a lot better than losing the fish of a lifetime from a problem that could have been prevented.
Oh, I gotta switch this hook out, dude.
In my opinion, a hook is the single most important piece of tackle that we have. It's more important than your rod. It's more important than your fly line. It's more important than your reel. The only thing that compares to it is your leader material, because those are the things that are going to largely determine if you land a fish or not. If you found this video helpful, share it with a friend, and let's help people catch more fish.